Good morning. Today's Wednesday, the 15th day of Sivan. We are up to chapter 5 in Shaar Hayichud VeHaemuna. And the Rebbe explained that this chapter 5, is a parenthetical note that begins in the end of chapter 4, explaining one aspect of tzimtzum, of the contraction, and explaining how the tzimtzum, God's contractions of his light, although being a limiting force, a constraining power, has also the ability, has also within it the energy, the godly energy of revelation, of giving, and forming the light that comes from Hashem in ways that we can accept it. We explained this in yesterday's class. Unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, yesterday's class was not able to be recorded properly. So we'll just touch on the point that we spoke about. And this is when we're talking about tzimtzum, contraction. Usually, you would think there is the force of revelation and there is the force of contraction. What is the purpose of the revelation? Is to reveal the light. We used an example of the power. When you have power that comes from the power plant, is very intense power, lots of voltage. In order to be able to constrain, to be able to benefit the energy, you have to contract. You take a transformer and you reduce the amount of the energy that flows, and then you can benefit from this. So this is the purpose of the contraction is to limit the amount. So when we're talking about Hashem, here we're saying that the tzimtzum, the contraction, is not only a limiting force, it has actually a power of revealing it also. In other words, Hashem contracts the light, but yet within us there is not only the limited amount of contraction, the limited amount of energy that everything comes in us, except we don't feel it and we don't see it. Today, the Alter Rebbe continues by explaining that what we just explained, we can actually see from the Medrash, where the Medrash talks about the creation of the world. And it says that when in the beginning of the creation of the world, when God created the world, originally, he wanted to create the world b'midas adin, with the attribute of judgment, contraction. That's how he wanted to create the world. When he saw that the world will not be able to sustain, then he joined in the attribute of rachamim. That's from the Medrash. And the question is, what does it mean that God wanted to create the world with the attribute of contraction, of judgment? If contraction serves only the purpose of limiting the light, then it's not a force of creation. It's not a force that creates the light. Therefore, this gives support to the Alter Rebbe's explanation that when we're talking about the contraction, the midas hagevura, the attribute of judgment, the attribute of restrictions, this is not only a restrictive power, but is also a creative power. And this is why he said it's beyond our understanding. But we can understand that in here, in this power of restricting the light, which he calls it the kalim, the vessels. So just like a vessel, whatever goes into the vessel really shapes what goes into the vessel. And we gave the example of the water that comes into a colored cup. Then the water seems like it gets a different color. So the vessel, the cup, gives a shape into the water. Or another example is the light that comes, the sunlight, which is just bright, doesn't have a color. When it comes in through a colorful glass, all of a sudden you have a different color light. So here we're talking about the power, the forces that Hashem has, the tzimtzum, the din, the restriction, actually forms the light. And in a way, it changes the light. The light itself, it changes the light from our perspective. So let's see what Alter Rebbe explains in this chapter 5 of Shaar Hayichud VeHaemuna. Says the Alter Rebbe here, V'hinei al zeh amru Rabbeinu Zichrono Livracha. Concerning the concept that all of creation came about through the process of tzimtzum, the contraction, which enables created being to believe that they enjoy an independent form of existence. So concerning this, our sages of blessed memory said, B'techila Allah b'machshava livroi es ha'olam b'midas adin. Originally, it arose in God's thought to create a world through the attribute of stern judgment, through tzimtzum, to gevura. As we said, there is the name Avaya and Elokim. Elokim is judgment. Then Rosh Eino Ilo Miskayim. Then he saw, however, that in this manner the world could not endure. So what did he do? Shitiv by midas rachamim. He associated the attribute of mercy in the creation. So what does it mean, the midas rachamim? What does it mean that he associated the midas rachamim? It means that he associated the level of rachamim, which is the revealed part of godliness. So he didn't substitute the tzimtzum for rachamim. It doesn't say that he changed from gevura to rachamim. You have the midas adin, you have the tzimtzum, you have the contraction, that everything comes through the contraction, otherwise we wouldn't exist. But he saw that the world would not exist. What does it mean? Would not be able to endure, meaning you would lose sight to what is the real source of this world. You would lose the ability to see the godliness. And for that reason, Hashem brought in along with it. He associated with it the attribute of mercy, which the attribute of mercy is the more revelation of godliness. Says the Alter Rebbe, the Hainu is galus eleikus al yedei tzadikim. Meaning, it says that he combined within the attribute of mercy. That means that the revelation within the world of godliness through the tzaddikim and the supernatural power of oisis and moisim shebatayra. Supernatural power through the tzaddikim and through the signs and miracles recorded in the Torah. Oisis and moisim shebatayra. Now when we're saying that Hashem introduced also he joined in also the miracles. That basically shows that the world is godliness. The miracles of the Torah, the miracles that comes through the tzaddikim. You see the story with Rabbi Hanina ben Doisa, when he was very poor, and the Gemara says about the lighting the candles, the Shabbos candles, and by mistake, they put vinegar instead of oil. So Rabbi Hanina ben Doisa said, Misha Amar Lashemen v'yadlik, whoever said to the oil that should light, that should burn, will say to the vinegar that shall burn. What does it mean? So basically, we know that, as we explained in the previous lessons, that every creature has its energy through the Torah, through the words and the letters, the Hebrew alphabet, the combination of the different letters. Those are the energy that brings the each and every creature, the quality of it, the characteristics of it. So if vinegar has a certain code, okay, so you switch the code. You said the code of vinegar has the ability of light, the oil has the ability of lighting. They'll say the same person, the same one who did the code for the vinegar to light, to the oil to light, can do the same thing to the vinegar. And that's what happened. So we see this is the revelation of Rachamim, which is in the miracles that is done through the tzaddikim, the miracles that there is recorded in the Torah. And not just that is recorded in the Torah, but is also, he's telling us Shabbat Torah from the Torah, meaning to say that the miracles, they come through the Torah. As we will soon see, that the Torah is something which is above the limitations of this world, and it has in it both the contraction, the way Hashem contracted his light into this world, but in the same thing, the Torah has also the light which is above the contraction. As it continues, the Alter Rebbe, regarding this, so regarding the fact that the attributes of Chesed and Gevurah transcend intellect, it says in the Zohar, the le'ela besitra de kedusha ilah is yamina ve'is smala. It says above, it's stated in the Zohar that above, in the side of the supernal holiness, meaning in the world of Atzilus, which is far superior to the three lower worlds, Beriya, Yitzir, Asiyah, there is right and left, namely Chesed and Gevurah. The Chesed, as we said, is the attribute of revelation, and the Gevurah is the attribute of constriction, of Tzimtzum. However, in the world of Atzilus, you have both. Pirush, which means the Shteyem ein midois eleikus lemaylo miseichel anivroim ve'asagosam. He says this statement was not written simply to inform us that Chesed and Gevurah exist. For this is already well known. What is this saying? He says rather this means that both Gevurah as well as Chesed are attributes of godliness that transcend the intellect and comprehension of created beings. Because he and his attributes are one in the world of Atzilus, both Chesed and Gevurah being thus wholly united with him. So in the world of Atzilus, the higher world, this two, they come together, they join together. So therefore, this explains until now the first point, what Alter Rebbe is trying to make here, that when you have the tzimtzum, when you have the contraction, yes, it is a contraction from our perspective, but in the same time, the contraction is part of godliness. And therefore, the contraction is also has the force of creation and formation rather than just limiting the light. Now, as you remember, yesterday also we asked another question. That is, when we're talking about Hashem is everywhere, so what does it mean that when we take a physical object and we make it holy? For example, when we take tefillin and we put on tefillin, the physical parchment becomes holy. If the holiness is everywhere, then how do you make something holy which is already Hashem is in there? And we explained that this is because the way we perceive the world is in a concealed way. But the holiness that we do by doing the mitzvah is to bring out the truth and to reveal the ultimate truth of this object. That the ultimate truth is that it's a godly thing. And when you do in a physical mitzvah, you actually bring it out to it becomes revealed, that aspect. However, the question is, this is maybe the case by people like me and you. But what about people who are already in the level of Atzilus? There's those tzaddikim, those righteous people, that they live in a very high world. As we mentioned the story of the Alter Rebbe, when he saw the beam before he passed away, he looked at a beam and he says, I don't see a beam, I see godliness. So what's the point by them, by the tzaddikim? They see godliness everywhere anyway. So here the Alter Rebbe continues and says that even those tzaddikim, that they see things the way it is in a spiritual world, in Atzilus, but still there is some kind of screen as well, some kind of filtering, even from the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. So even then, also there is the aspect of doing the mitzvahs, learning the Torah, and elevating. Says the Alter Rebbe says, "Ve'af hasagas Moshe Rabbeinu olav hasholem." Even the comprehension of Moses, our teacher, Moshe Rabbeinu, peace unto him, benevuasa, in his prophecy, lo yoisa ba'olam ha'atzilus. His prophetic vision did not extend to the world of Atzilus itself, elo al yedei islapshusoi ba'olam ha'briya, except through its being clothed in the world of Beriah, which is the second world. Ve'av gamzois, and even in the world of Beriah, loi bishtei midas elu chesed gvura. Even then, his comprehension of the world of Atzilus did not extend to these two attributes of chesed and gvura, elo al yedei islapshuson b'midas shelamato mehem b'madrega shehein midas netzach chod yesod. But only insofar as they were previously clothed into attributes which are of lower levels than themselves, meaning the attributes of netzach, victory, eternity, hoid, the splendor, and yesod, the foundation. So he says, even concerning the level of nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu, also went through the lower levels. As it says in the It's Chaim, it's called the Shaar Nevuah. Rak shematan Schoron shel tzadikim began Eden. Uasogas is pashtus oir v'chayus, is pashtus chayus v'oir nimshach mishtei midas elu chesed gvura. Says it's only the tzadikim in Gan Eden were granted the reward of comprehending the spreading forth of the life force, and the light which issues from these two attributes, the chesed and gvura. So he says in Gan Eden, there is the spreading of this life force, which comes from chesed and gevura. How can it happen in Gan Eden? So he says, "V'hu mezoin nishmos hatzadikim she'osku b'Torah lishma ba'olam hazeh." He says this comprehension of spreading forth the life force and light, which issues from these two attributes. This is the food of the souls of the tzaddikim, who in this world engaged in the study of Torah for its own sake. So when you engage in the study of Torah, that becomes a food for the neshamas of the tzaddikim. Why? Because the Torah, as we explained, has both aspects. The Torah has the aspect of it is the godly light, the direct godly light, unlimited godly light. And in the same time, the Torah has the limitations. It came down into a limited form. You study the Torah in a way that it comes down in terms that we can understand. So the Torah itself, the studying the Torah for its own sake, serves as the food for the neshamas of the tzaddikim, and says why? Because from the diffusion of these two attributes, chesed and gevura, there is a firmament that is drawn, that spreads over the souls in Gan Eden. What is the idea of the firmament? A rakia. A firmament is the idea of a makif. A makif means encompassing a higher level of light. V'rakia ze nikra roza de'iraisa. Now this firmament is called roza de'iraisa, the secrets of the Torah, which is the mystical dimension of the Torah. And within this firmament is the secret of the 22 letters of the Torah, which was given as an expression of these two attributes. And again, we said the Torah, the letters of the Torah, has both sides. It has the chesed and the gevura. It has the revelation and the contraction, restriction. Where do we see in the Torah that it has both aspects? So he brings a verse that says, "Kedichsiv, mi minoi eish das lami." As it is written, from his right hand he gave unto them a fiery law. So the eish, the right, represents kindness. Chesed is in the right. The fire represents gevura, the judgment, the restriction. So it says, "Mi minoi eish das lamai." Das lamai, by the way, has also the same, makes up the Talmud, the same letters as Talmud, the study of the Talmud, study of the Gemara. It has this power that it combines. It is above both of them, the Chesed and Gvura, and combines them both. Umereki azeh noi teiftal lemozain anashamis. From this firmament, it says, from this transcendental illumination drops dew, which is symbolic of the esoteric insights of the Torah, and that is as food for the souls. The Hainu Yedia Soid Chav Beis Oisius HaTorah, which is the knowledge of the secrets of the 22 letters of the Torah, Because this firmament is the secret of the level of knowledge, das. What is das? Das is the connecting. Das is something which the person is able to connect to something which is above. And the Torah is the food of the souls in Gan Eden. And the commandments are their garments. So the Torah is something, when you study the Torah, this serves then as the food for the neshama, which is something that is internalizes. The mitzvahs is something, is the garments that enables you to receive this light, but this serves as the garment. All of this is explained in the Zohar, Vayakel, page 209 to 10, and in Eitz Chaim, portal 44, chapter 3. So, yes, it is a Kabbalistic, deep explanation into the whole thing. There is the message that we take from here is that we have the Hashem placed in the beginning of creation. That He created it with din. Allah b'machshava came up to the idea to create with judgment, with restriction. But yet, in order for the world to sustain, He incorporated also the rachamim. He incorporated the ability to see godliness. There was once a group of students, college students, that came to visit the Rebbe, and they got the opportunity to interview the Rebbe. They asked him different questions. And then one of the students asked the Rebbe, he said, Rebbe, I heard you're able to perform miracles. Can you do a miracle for us? So the Rebbe smiled, and the Rebbe told him that each and every one of you can actually perform a miracle. And that is, if you think of something, a mitzvah, that you thought it would be impossible for you to do, you make a firm decision and you're going to do it, you just perform the miracle. So the miracle is the ability to go beyond our natural tendencies. And really, in order to be able to go and break our natural tendencies, we need a higher power. And that higher power was embedded right in the beginning of creation. In the beginning, when God created the world. Like it says, when He created the world, He put stipulations, He made conditions. The conditions there's a whole list of conditions. All the things that needs to be done should not be limited in the laws of nature, like the splitting of the sea. God made a condition that, yes, I have the laws of nature, but when the sea needs to be split for the Jewish people to pass, that is part of the condition of the creation of the nature. And the same thing is true with every Jew that needs to fulfill his or her mission in this world. Hashem placed within His plan the ability that if a miracle needs to happen for you to be able to fulfill your mission, the miracle will happen. All you have to do is reveal that miracle within yourself. So this is the end of today's class. Thank you for joining. Bezat Hashem will continue tomorrow. Any questions or comments? Don't forget to subscribe and to share this also. Thank you.